Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast, and we are your number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, dying, and grief with some amazing people, not only walk the walk, but talk the talk. And they are out here doing some amazing things in the world. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say that if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor. You see that scrolling across the bottom over there, the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. We are on YouTube. Head on over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And of course, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say that this is for educational purposes only. This is a live stream. So please put your questions and comments in the comments section, and we'll be sure to answer those as we go. Now, without further ado, I'm going to bring on my next guest. Guys, help me welcome Maria Roney to the episode. How you doing, Maria?
I'm really good, Tony. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here.
Yes. I'm excited. I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
Yes, I'm really excited too. And as I mentioned to you just before, Tony, I really honor you and the work that you do in this world and how you've turned your grief into your passion and service to others.
I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. You know, we all are out here finding purpose in the things that we do, right? And so my hat goes off to you. You know, so I reflect that really back to you. You know, I from what I read, I was like, wow, she's out here doing some amazing things. Now, before we get started and get into your story, do me a favor. Tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Okay, so I'm in Mackay in Queensland, Australia. And it's a beautiful, warm summer day here. And so I'm a healer, intuitive guide, and teacher. And my purpose and passion is to support women to really step into their divine feminine power and to really heal from their past grief, trauma, and heartbreak, limiting beliefs, whatever it is, they can let go of so they can really show up and be authentically who they are. And I just love the work I do. I run women's circles and I run different workshops and immersions and obviously have my one-on-one clients as well.
Oh, wow. See, again, I told you guys out here doing some amazing things, right? You know, which really, I have to ask the question, how did you get into this work?
Okay, so life cracked me open completely and utterly about 4 years ago when I realized that I was in a coercive, controlling relationship. Are we familiar with that term? It's a domestic violence.
I'm familiar with it, but for the audience, explain to the audience what that means.
Yeah, coercive control is all of the types of abuse, of domestic violence. It's not your traditional like beaten woman type of stereotypical abuse. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much the physical violence, it's like this insidious, horrific abuse, manipulation, gaslighting that takes your confidence and over the years smooshes it into the ground like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And so I had started, it's just layered and complicated and horrific. It's like it's like if you get stung by a bee once, it's like okay, but if you get stung by a bee like 1,000 times, then it's like life-threatening. So it's just like it goes on and on. And so I got to a point, I started doing my personal growth, and I got to a point where I realized that I didn't realize the extent of the abuse at that time, but I made the decision to end the relationship. And it was a super, super hard decision because the threat of suicide was always there. It was like held me hostage for a long time. And so when I made that decision, it just felt so clear to me that I needed to choose myself. And I just said to the universe, like, I surrender. I just surrender to what is going to unfold. Like, I knew that the ending wouldn't be good, but I really didn't think that my worst nightmare would come true, but it did. So, So he took his own life, and that set me onto a path that I didn't expect. It completely cracked me open. It was and has been and still is like a beautiful path, and has been excruciatingly painful. And so what it's done though, it's cracked me open to my gifts. It's set me into what in my language I call it a dark night of the soul.
Mhm.
And on this journey, I've learned so much about grief. You know, the grief I've experienced, complicated grief. They talk about it, you know, in combination with the trauma and the PTSD. And so this grief, it hasn't been simple, it hasn't been easy, because it's been grief of like losing someone I've been with for almost 20 years, the grief of like his choice and what it did to
Right.
me and what it did for me. And that's a really important keynote for me, because I live my life now of life happens for us and not to us. So he gave me a gift, life, you know, that I chose to accept through his choice. But there was grief around that. And then, of
Oh,
course, grief about the years I'd spent, and grief of what I'd experienced, and what, you know, that past self of mine, that, you know, I was only 26 when I got into that relationship, and like I just didn't know. I was so trusting and so naive. And so there was big grief for her. And that's and of course grief of the relationship, of the life that I expected,
right.
you know, to happen. So that's like where it, you know, really started the work that I do.
Right. And that's truly amazing. And in a lot of ways, when you were saying that, it reminded me of the narcissistic relationships as well, right? And
Yeah.
and so I can't speak about anyone else. I've been in a narcissistic abusive
Have
relationship.
you? Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
where I was the victim, and
Yeah.
I would tell you this, right? And it sounds like both of them run hand in hand. When it comes down to those individuals that are capable of doing that, it's like they go to no ends to get you, right?
Yes, yes.
It's like, oh yeah, you think I won't stalk you? Yeah, I'll come and do. And not only will I stalk you, but I will let everybody see me stalk you. Then I'm going to convince them that you're the problem.
Yes, yes.
Huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, yeah, I mean, like his choice to end his life was
Mhm.
intended as the biggest manipulation, like
Right. Yeah.
to be like a life sentence for me. But yeah, like no, like I don't accept that. Like that's, you know, it took me a lot of work and a lot of time to really work through how, like the shame and like the guilt, and I was blamed for his death and still am by his family.
Right.
Um, but like I blamed myself, but it's actually not my responsibility at all. But it is my responsibility to heal from it.
Now that part, yeah. When it comes down to people's families, they love to point the finger at everyone else, although they know what their children are capable of doing. Right? They know. They raised them.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it's them that they get it from. And so they're like, oh no, it couldn't have been my child, right? Like it had to be the other person. No, when it comes down to it, I always tell people like, look, if you want to blame me for what that individual did, then you go right ahead and you knock yourself out. Because as for me, myself, and I, this does not live rent free on me anymore because of the simple fact of you sat around and watched her do it.
Yeah.
I was the one that you guys came to and said, I don't know why she did that. So it wasn't like you didn't know, right? And
Mm.
that last little jab, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'll show you type thing. And I know that there's a lot of people out there right now that are dealing with some sort of narcissistic, abusive spouse,
Absolutely.
partner,
Yes.
friend, or even family member, and don't know how to get out of it, right? And most of them don't. Most of them have been cracked open so many times that they've just gotten used to being cracked open, right? They're not
Yeah.
really looking at what's spilled out of them and things like that. And you have.
Yes, that's right. And look, it's when you're in a cycle of abuse, that's what it is. It's a cycle.
Right.
And the chemicals in the brain, it's actually an addiction. Like to go from
Mhm.
the big love bombing right through to the cycle to the explosion or the abuse, and then, the peace. And then the brain, the chemicals are craving the love bombing again. And so we
Right.
get caught in that cycle. And so that's why it's so hard to break. And I didn't realize how bad it was, because the cycle can go for long periods of time. And then towards the end, life was living hell. And the cycle was going every single day. And I was aware and I was awake to it. And I'd started to do some research, and I was just like, oh my God, this is domestic violence. So
Yeah.
it's not an easy path, and it's not easy to leave. It's not at all. It's life-threatening. It's dangerous.
Well, I would say thank you for having the courage to leave something like that and recognize that it was a cycle of just abuse and things, because no one deserves that, right? And
No, no.
right now that are going through, and I sit around because no one wants to listen to you tell them that they're in an abusive relationship, right?
No, no.
Like, no, you don't know. You don't. I was like, I do. This is why I'm saying something, sweetie. Like, it's you don't deserve this, right? But I also have seen the other side where I have told friends, and they're like, no, he's just having a bad day. I was like,
Mm.
how many bad days have he had? Because right now it seems like it's been 3 years of bad days and not a day in between, right?
Yes.
And how long do his bad days last? Are they lasting for, like, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 hours, 2 hours? I mean, because right now it looks like it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right?
Mm.
No, sometimes I just do. I was like, so not only did he convince you that it was your problem, your fault why he's acting this way, but he also convinced you to be okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Play itself out, right? And so
Yeah.
after you do, Marie, what do you do when somebody is in a situation like that, where they don't mentally understand what's going on? How do you get someone out of that situation without making them feel as if you're trying to attack them? Because that's a tricky road
Yeah,
to.
that's right, exactly. And look, I'd say that you can't. It's up to the person, right? All you can do is support someone, is like listen to them and be there for them, and hold up a mirror to them if they start opening up to you. And if anyone is listening to this and is resonating and wondering if they're in an abusive relationship, then there is this amazing charity called Broken to Brilliant, and it is a charity that has published 4 books, and I'm a co-author of one of those books. And so there's lots of stories in those, and there's lots of support for recognizing how to support a friend, and how to, like, we can't people only leave when they're ready. So as much as we care about someone, um, we can't press them, or we can only help them when they ask.
I understand that. Yeah, thank you for that. My next question would be, you mentioned complicated grief, and I want to dive into the different forms of grief that is associated with that sort of
Mm,
relationship, right? That sort of manipulation, right?
yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is. The abuse kind of comes a little bit later. So when it comes down to complicated grief and dealing with that relationship, break that down for us, right? You know what I'm saying? Because as an individual who's had to not only identify it, right? You know what I'm saying? But you actually had to, heal from that. So explain to the audience what that sort of grief is associated with that type of manipulation.
Yeah. Well, there are stages to it. And I
Mhm.
guess the first thing I'll say, like with any grief, it's individual like a fingerprint. And we all going to experience grief in our own way.
Mhm.
And like, so for me, it was like looking back at it now, hindsight is wonderful, obviously. It's
Yes.
like recognizing, and I would like, I would headline this by saying, you know, accepting that it's a dark night of the soul. And I was already on a spiritual journey and I'd already surrendered to the outcome. And now it was my opportunity to really go with the waves of the grief, to
Mhm.
go with, to allow what came up when it came up. So to start off with, there was numbness.
Mhm. Okay.
And and you might be familiar with this, Tony, like the it's the central nervous system like completely shutting down and keeping you safe, and the inability to feel anything.
Yes.
And what I didn't realize at the time is that numbness was my friend. And
Mhm.
numbness helped me to organize a funeral for the husband that had just killed himself, right? And I hadn't yet unpacked all the abuse. I knew that it was there, but it was like having to go through the stages of letting go of what I thought it was and really honoring the numbness and knowing that it was there for me, even though I tried to fight it at the time. But I think the lesson is to really lean into it and to accept it and then go with the waves, because once the numbness wears off, and I'd say my numbness lasted, off and on for months, big trauma, like
Yeah.
big, this, how do you even begin to unpack that kind of trauma that being in a relationship for such a long time and then like what my ex did. It was really big. So I saw a trauma counselor. I went down the path of getting help, and I and then I started to learn to trust the waves, because
Mhm.
there are waves, and this is how energy goes, right? Energy goes like this. So our grief journeys also go like this. Life goes like this. And when we can recognize that there can still be happiness and joy in the grief part path, and then just go with the wave. I used to dread when the hard times would come again, and then like they'd last for quite a long time, really dark, and then I'd feel some moments of joy, and I think maybe life is going to be okay, and then
Mhm.
they'd hit again. And look, I got this tattoo, fearless,
Right.
um, early on, and that was like I really knew, I really was so determined to have some peace. Like, I never thought that I would be able to find peace again.
Right. I I love that. I love that because there's a lot that could be said for just the waves of grief, right? And I want to add to that because I love the fact that you made it so simple, where the waves go up and down and things like that. And I want to add to that, right? Because there's a other part that people don't understand, that there's a lot of different other stages of grief, like there's a lot of different forms of grief: displaced grief, disenfranchised grief, right? There's compared grief, there's compacted grief, there's the grief of manipulation and abuse, all of these different things, right? And I love the fact that you said that sometimes it's like an addiction, right? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And people don't understand that there are some people addicted to the chaotic abuse of others. They actually
absolutely, yes.
to seek it out, right? You know,
Yeah.
and so now I want to add to those ways because I was right there with you, right? Because I tell you, after some of the losses that I've endured, that up and down and things like that, you know, I was like, oh man, you know, because for the longest time I didn't think I was going to be able to get to that point. I didn't think I was ever going to be able to smile or be happy. But you know
Yes.
what thing, Maria? I was really good at putting on a mask. I was really good at portraying that I was okay to other people because
Mm.
expected of me, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
For it
Yes.
to that, right? People expected me to be the one that they could still run to, regardless of what was going on. And then when I put, it didn't take very long when I realized that people were actually coming to me about the loss that I had endured, my own personal loss, but they wanted me to put us. I was like, how does this work? It's like y'all acted like so. Say for instance, you know, one of my most challenging losses was my son, right? When my son passed away, everybody's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's gone! I can't believe he's gone!" And then what happened after that? People were calling, "Oh man, you know, I just want to talk about Jake. What Jake is my son's name.
Yes.
You know, I
Yes.
just want to talk about Jake, man. I really miss him so much. Now here I am. They're at home, and I'm at my own house, right, all by myself. And here they are. Oh man, I can't believe he's gone. Hmm. Finally, I said, you know what? I don't know if you realize this or not. I swear, but just like how you feel right there, did it ever dawn on you that I'm his father?
Yeah. Yes.
Did it ever
Yeah.
dawn on you that maybe I'm feeling some sort of right now that you just chose to call me and dump your stuff on me?
Yes. Yep.
And so now what I started doing, after a while, I said, you know what? I'm gonna start making people ask me permission. You don't just get to just call me up and then 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, 30 seconds after I answer the phone, you're just gonna no, ask permission first. Ask what
Yeah.
I got going on. Ask me if
Yeah.
I'm in a good mindset. Ask me if I have time to listen to you. Like be respectful of mine as well. Right. I can't deal with yours and mine at the same time. So I started setting those boundaries. Right. And so
Yeah.
messiness that came along with it because not only did I rub people the wrong way, but they were there. That was a whole new set of waves in the whole grief.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
ever
That's
those
right.
ball of yards, those ball of yards that the cat gets a hold of and they just rip it all apart? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, we just gonna spread this out across the floor. And I was like,
Tony.
yeah, that's what that is
Oh,
right now.
yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, I feel you on what you just said. Like that's I feel like grief taught me boundaries. It
Yeah.
really showed me really quickly who was good for me and who wasn't. And there were
Mhm.
people who were like watching a car crash and wanted the gossip, right? And
Mhm.
how's he really going? Like how, people would just say to me, I don't know how you can like even get out of bed in the morning. Well, that's not very helpful, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and there like and then there was the other thing it taught me was grace because
Mhm.
people didn't know what to say to me. And like I went back to work 6 weeks after. I was so hard on myself, like so hard on myself. And I was, I'm a really friendly, like sociable person. And um and when I went back, some people avoided me. And that was probably the hardest thing, right? And and some people said some really stupid stuff. And but what I realized was that these people who were saying the same stupid stuff, I knew them to be really good people, and they
Mhm.
were doing the best they could.
There
And
you
and I really honored them for at least approaching me and doing their best. Because I think the hardest thing is when it gets ignored. But that really like taught me just to just to have that grace.
Yeah. And you know, that's the beautiful part about it is, right, because there's always the other side of it, and sometimes it takes a while to get to that side, you know. And I, just like yourself, there was the one thing that I learned too, that people were doing the best that they could from their understanding, right? But,
Yes.
you know, and I
Yeah.
guess so, you know, there was a lot of grace that came along with that. I used to get upset in the beginning when people were like, "Oh man, I wouldn't know what to do if that was to happen to me." I'm glad that you don't. So, you know,
Yes.
I got a smart mouth too, right? And
Yes.
I'm real quick with it. So if you say something stupid to me, I would say something back like, "Yeah, I'm glad that you don't. You know, I'm glad that you don't know what to do, because I didn't either. Unfortunately, now I have to find out, right?"
Yeah. That's
They
it.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, and it would catch them off guard. They would just look and go, it's like, yeah, be careful what you say because you don't know what I'm going to say back to you, right? You know what I'm saying? So be mindful. I'm glad that you don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
I wish this sort of emptiness, this sort of pain on anyone because of the simple fact of I would be afraid to see how you responded to it or reacted
Oh,
to it. You
that's
may not have the mental or the physical fortitude to deal with what's going on right now, right? You know,
mm,
it's and the same person who destroyed me, the narcissist, was the same one who gave me this piece of advice or gave or said these words to me that still hold true to this day. This sort of grief will kill you.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's a hell of a term right there. That sort of grief will kill you. I have a friend that just tuned in right now. Anthony, how you doing, brother? Still, I'm glad to see you joining in today. Uh, right now, we're just having a great conversation on what we're reading. If you have any questions or comments, man, please put them in the comments
Yeah.
section.
Feel
And
free.
for anyone who's tuning in on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, all of you guys, I see you guys up there. So if you got any questions or comments, put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. All right. But yeah, a lot of people never really think about how that affects people, and they
Right.
never really think about where a person is emotionally, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or mentally, because those two things go hand in hand. And sometimes
Yeah.
you may be in a very sensitive emotional state, but in a very dark mental state. And hand in hand, those two will do something bad to you, right?
Mm,
People go, well, I didn't see that coming. Well, you should have. Yeah, that sucks, right?
yeah. That's right. Exactly. You know,
Right.
one of the gifts of this experience, I'm sure this will resonate with you, Tony, as well, is that like I've experienced emotions that I never knew existed, right?
Yeah.
So deep, so dark. But the gift is that I can now hold space for anything, anything. The darkest of the dark. Like I've got the emotional capacity. Like my range of emotions like was this, and now it's like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It leads me to this question. Um do you ever notice that you can cut off or disassociate your emotions from the situation, which allows you to be more pretty much more open to be in that space with those individuals in their darkest moments?
I think I wouldn't say I disassociate. I'm deeply empathetic.
Right.
And yeah, and part of that is that I've had to learn boundaries. That's been like
Mm.
a massive part of my growth. Never had boundaries before. People pleaser, overgiver, perfectionist. And now when I hold space for people who are experiencing big stuff, and women come to me and they've been through hell like me in different ways, and I can hold space for them because I've got boundaries with empathy and boundaries. So I
Yeah.
don't have to dissociate. I can be there and really just hold that love, that space for them.
I love that, right? Because you've helped me understand something, especially like for me being a man and everything. And I love that you brought this up. I had to learn how to, one, be open to the emotions that I was feeling, because no one ever taught me it was okay to have these emotions, right? I was always
Yeah.
man
Oh,
up,
yeah.
pushing forward, like don't stop. You got to keep moving forward, right? But then when I hit my brick wall, I realized I couldn't move forward anymore, right? And I realized that grief wasn't something to survive, right? Because I've
Mm-mm.
been surviving my whole entire life. I'm what most people would call a battle dog, right? You know what I'm saying? You put me in any sort of fight, let's go. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
worst thing that happen, you kill me, okay, but at least you're gonna know that I was there. And I've
Yeah.
always had that sort of mentality. Now,
Yeah.
I didn't have that mentality when it came down to grief. Like, you're not going to whoop me. Like, do you not know who I am?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. There you go. So that the gift for you was to soften,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Yeah. To
in so
soften.
many ways, yes, but in so many ways, no. See, there's a difference. I had to soften myself in order to accept the gift that
Yes.
grief
Yes.
was giving me, right? But also, in the same sense, I had to harden myself to callous my mind over for what life was going to, what how life was throwing everything at me, so I didn't break at the first time of stress, right? At the first time of, what I'm saying, of something not going my way. I had to have
Mhm.
a mental hardness to it, right?
Yeah.
Turn help me develop the deep empathy that I do have. And
Yes.
send
Yeah.
families to understand where my role was in life, right?
Yep.
But also, and I tell people this all the time. Look, man, I have so many amazing people that I know, um, and I look up to them just as well as they look up to me, and I don't think they really understand that. But there was a lot of times people was going, I don't know how you're doing it, man. You're such a leader. I go, no, I'm not a leader, but nor am I a follower neither. I don't encourage people to follow me, right? Don't follow me.
Mm.
I never know my role's going to drop off at. I don't want you to be. I don't want to be responsible for you falling down the same hill I fall down, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's where that empathy, that deep embedded hardness come from, but also the softness of learning how to articulate, right? You
Mm.
brought up something. They're the daddy, what people don't understand, or maybe they do understand and they just having a hard time identifying. Some grief is so deep, right? You know what I'm saying? That it's really hard to put into words.
Oh, it's like it's so hard to put into words.
Yeah.
Impossible. Like it's just so yeah, it's profound.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really hard to identify. Like the first time I remember I sat around, this is probably about 2 years after my son passed away. And it was right before my mother passed away, right before my mother passed away.
Wow.
And I, I, um, I went and saw my sister, and I was just telling her, I was like, I don't know what to do with this. This thing is
Yeah.
so deep. Like if I said that it was in my soul, that would be an understatement, right? It was just so deep that it was. I didn't know whether or not I was going to come back from it, right? Because
Yeah.
when you're used to being able to fight through stuff, things like that, then you
Mm.
run into something that you can't fight. This is where most people find themselves stuck.
Mm.
This is where the idea or the action comes from. You know what? I can't deal with this rate. I cannot deal with this. This is too much. This is too much. And people often make a permanent decision to stop it, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of people never really understand the beauty and the grace of grief when it comes. They never learn how to put words and definitions to what you're actually feeling, right?
Yes.
I remember
Yes.
telling a friend of mine, I remember telling a friend of mine, I remember I was so tired. As a
Excuse me.
matter of fact, one of my buddies up here, he probably remembers this. We used to, when I drove trash truck and things like that, we used to have some amazing conversations in the truck. And I remember just saying, like, you know, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. right?
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know how I'm supposed to navigate this. No one ever said that it was okay for me not to be okay. But I also said this, and I think this is where I really started to really pay attention. But also, I became very mischievous in my actions that no one really paid attention to, right? You know, I literally said, I'm so tired. I am so beat up right now. It's not a physical tired, but it's a soul tired that,
Yes. Yeah.
if God, if God had been sitting across from me in those moments, I would have looked at God and said, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
If I had the choice in those moments, I would have walked away from everything. I would have said, look, take me away from this. Right? I can't do it anymore. And I realized that there are so many people out there right now that are going through that same process,
Yes.
that are just
Absolutely.
right. Um, and some of them are stuck.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. And
How?
yeah,
Go ahead,
sorry.
go ahead, go ahead. No, no, please go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that can really help with the grief process and getting, unstuck is trusting the process.
Mm,
And it's it's like getting out of your head, right? No, you literally cannot figure out in your head how you're going to move through it. But if you can drop into your heart space and
mm,
just and like surrender and surrender and surrender some more to the flow of life. And that's when you can ride the waves, right? Because if we look at, say, a river, like a fast flowing river, it's like and it's life, and we're all on this river of life, right? We're all on it, and it's just going regardless. It's just going. But when we try to swim upstream or cling onto a bank, that's when we get stuck, or that's when we really hold ourselves back. But when we can actually surrender to the grief process and go, I'm just going to go on this river of life, I'm just going to flow with it. And what comes up, and I'll know how to deal with it. And so for me, Tony, it's been 4 years, so it's not like a huge amount of time. And on my path, I've learned lots of practices and tools to support me
right.
when I have those moments. And I think that, so it's people, it's practices, it's like whatever you need, that's good for you. Because trust me, I tried drinking lots of wine every day, and that wasn't like a good tool. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's a path of like honoring self. Like, how can I honor myself even more? Like,
Mm,
how can I get into my heart space even deeper? How can I really trust in this process of life and what it is, what is it for my soul's growth and evolution? Like, trust me, Tony, I'm way more love now than I was. Like, I'm way more compassionate and understanding and less judgmental and kind. I was a really nice person, but like now I've got this depth to me. And if I could talk to my past self from like say 3 years ago when I was like in a living hell, and not, to trust the process and just trust the process and know that it's happening for us and not to us. And that's a big trust. Like that's really trusting in God, in the universe, right? And it's not easy, but when we go deeper and deeper and deeper into that, that's when we start unlocking gifts. And we start taking down those barriers that haven't served us in the past. Or
yeah.
like opposite to you, Tony, like I needed to put up barriers. So I was, you know, I needed to put in boundaries and protections and, you know, looking after myself.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you mentioned the trust thing, right? Because there's levels to that as well, and
Yeah.
it's something that I talk about a lot, right? You know, and I have a phrase: "Trust is earned." Right, and people will often say, "Well, no, you don't understand. I trust this person over here." I go, "Yeah, okay, yeah, but do you trust yourself?"
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to every time.
Yeah. Do you trust yourself enough to do what is necessary? Do you trust yourself enough to endure what you need to endure in order to heal and grow? Because no one likes being in pain, right? And
Right.
trusting yourself is the hardest thing that you will ever do in the process of grief or abuse or addiction. Any of the trusting yourself to go through what you need to go through in order to heal, but also trusting yourself enough when to say, I cannot fight. Let me surrender to the process and allow the process to take me where it needs to go because
Yeah.
it's comfortable and it's unknown. I just talked about this earlier in an earlier podcast. It's the X factor. It's the unknown of the process that you're going to go through. And the reason why I say that, look, everything that everything that we probably have accomplished right now, right? There is no set goal for it, right? There was no set goal. No one said that, hey, this is what you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
No, most of the stuff we just stumbled across and we was given great opportunities because and I really want people to understand this, and I know you'll probably get this. When you trust the gift that you have been given in giving inside of you, and you're willing to let it manifest into the world, that your gift will take you places that you can't even imagine, right? Who's that? A couple great names: Dr. Miles Monroe, Dr. Martin Luther King, Les Brown, a lot of other more, Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins. Your gift will make room for you. Your gift,
Yes.
your gift will make room for you, right?
Yes.
If you allow it to do what it needs to do in the world. And that comes
Mhm.
with its own set of trust. And that meaning is and its own set of surrendering, because then you realize that you've just now put yourself in the category of creator. What does a creator do? It does not allow the laws of physics to bind it to whatever you thought was your limitations, right?
Mhm. Absolutely, Tony. Yeah,
Right?
beautifully said. Absolutely. And it's accepting that gift fully.
There you go. There you go. And being able to, every time your gift begins to grow, you realize that you're no longer standing in front of your gift, you're standing behind your gift, allowing it to just grow like this big, huge energy ball, right? And your gift,
Mm.
so it wants to go out into the world. It wants to explore.
Mhm.
It wants to put things out there that has never been done before. Your gift
Yeah.
knows before you do, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the scary and the funniest part about it. Your gift knows what the world needs before you do. You just have to be crazy enough to put it out there.
I know, it's so true, Tony. And because, like, so I've got these, like, amazing gifts that support people on their healing journey,
Right,
and,
right.
like, using energy, and I'm psychic, and I can see, and I can people are their own healer, of course, like, I just support them. But, like, what what happens, like, when I hold space for people in group sessions or in individual sessions blows my tiny human brain. Like, I can't understand it, but I trust it. And it's like just the gift that gave me my gifts is the thing that, like, it's that part of me that knows more than my ego knows.
Oh man. Your ego has to be destroyed, right?
That's
Everything,
yes.
yeah, everything that you think that is going to be of benefit to you needs to be destroyed. Your safety nets, right? Everything that you thought
Yep.
that you needed to keep you safe That's all going to change. Your ego needs to be thrown out the window. Your pride is going to be crushed because your gift
Yep.
has a strange way of saying, oh, you thought that oh, no, we're not. Well, I'm about to embarrass you. It's going to humiliate you
Yeah.
until you commit to it, right? That's
Yeah.
another word that most people don't understand either, right? They think submission is something weak, right? They think that submission is just this bad thing. No, depending on what you're submitting to, right? Your gift requires you to submit to it because it's bigger than you.
It's
It's
bigger than you, right?
you
It's
know, and
Yep.
it gives so much more in return.
It gives you so much, so
So,
much.
yeah. So now it leads me to my next question. Like, did you? Because I wanted, I did this right, and it took me a while to understand it as well. But I knew what was holding. I knew how to hold space with people before I knew what holding space with people was. Right? You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like, and I think that was the beginning stages of when I really started to understand that this thing that was trying to come out of me was teaching me things that I never really thought about. Right? You know,
mm.
do you find that you often will know things before, you know what I'm saying, before you put in a situation, and just it just comes naturally?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've been like my background was human resources and and leadership coaching. And so I have it's like I've been training for what I do now for my whole life. Like the synchronicities. And I think that's part of like trusting in that flow is like looking out for the synchronicities. Like I remember I was working for a large organization, community organization as a leadership coach. And I loved that job so much. And this was in early 2020. And anyway, I was made redundant and I was devastated. And then I I went to work for another organization, a non-for-profit, um, and where I'd previously worked. And it was while I was working there that everything unfolded, that like that the worst of the worst happened. And so it provided a really soft landing place for me.
Mhm.
And the most beautiful, amazing people. And I know that that's where I was meant to be. So it's like when we can see the synchronicities, like whether it's, like being able to know, like you've always had a gift for holding space for people, and now it's really part of your gift, and like me as well. Or
Mhm.
whether it's like, looking back and understanding that the things that we thought um, were happening to us actually happened for us.
Mhm. I love it. I love that right there, and I love that you keep circling back to it because that is important for people to understand. It's not happening to you; it's happening for you. Like early, the one thing about grief, and people have heard me say this several times over. Grief is the one thing in this world that connects us as people,
Yes,
regardless of
yes.
where you're from. Regardless of where you're from, right? There's some grief is one of those things that's been around since the beginning of time and will be around since till the end of time, right? At least the end of your life, right? And when you're gone, that grief is going to be transferred to someone else. Get used to it. This is the way that life is. Now, if you could take that and notice that this is a shared human connection, it should open up the doors for you to be able to connect with people that have gone through similar things, right? On a level that will blow your mind if
Mhm.
you're open to the connection.
That's right. Absolutely, absolutely. And it's again, it's that the range of emotions, that depth that,
Mhm.
that the gift gives us, that we have the capacity to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And you went on to write a couple books. I heard you mention them earlier. You got good books handy. Show people. Show
Oh,
people.
well,
I'm calling you
Well, no, I
out. I'm calling you out. Okay, you're supposed to have the book handy.
well, Tony, I co-authored a book for a charity, Broken to Brilliant. And so I wrote it anonymously, which is why I can't say the exact name of the book. I could just, I am an author for, yeah, so it's an amazing tool if anyone wants to look up Broken to Brilliant and access the resources there as well for recovering from domestic violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna write a book, Tony, and that's like I'm getting the nudges. You know, when you get the nudges to do something, that's
Yeah.
like your intuition and yeah.
You know, I have to say that every one of the books that I've been in, because I co-authored, I've done two anthologies. I got two more coming out, and I got one that's going to be my own personal anthology, and things like that. I
Amazing.
I give all thanks and appreciation to the gift that has been given to me,
Mm,
because I never saw it coming, right? And
no, no.
I ever thought that, oh man, why am I doing this? And all of those different things, a different opportunity came, and that's how I got into both books actually, right? The first book that I was in, Relentless, Empowering Stories of Overcoming Adversity, was introduced to me from a really good friend of mine, brother from another mother, Nelson Belzajar, and his team. He's like, hey, I'm about to do this anthology. I would love for you to come and be a part of it. I never thought about writing a book. Never
Yeah,
thought about
there you
it.
go. Yeah,
And that was the first time. And my first time out, the book went international bestseller. So not only did I write the book, but now I have a title, international bestseller. I was like,
amazing.
what were you thinking about? I never saw that one coming, right?
Yeah,
And
indeed.
it's like, no, I got more for you, right? And the second book I was in, Men Grieve Too, it was along with 8 other men. That was another opportunity that was given to me by Miss Angela Lewis. And it was such a blessing. And the other three, the other two that are coming out was also other opportunities. You know, the gifts was so beautiful that I can't take credit for, right? Because I'm just here, a
Yeah,
human being in this world,
yeah,
and without, and I really want people to understand that when I say this, um, it's going to sound crazy, but had I not lost the people that I cared about the most, I wouldn't be here doing the things that I'm doing right now. you know the pain that all of us have to endure to get to where we are is a blessing to other people, right?
yeah,
And they don't
yeah,
understand that the
yeah,
sacrifices of that, when we put things out there or put ourselves in situations for them, with them, to be able to walk with them, to be able to hold that space with them, it's such a beautiful gift to be able to have that opportunity, right? To be able
yeah.
to have the skills, right?
Yes,
To have the
absolutely.
experience, the
Yep,
language, to be able
absolutely.
to be in that. People don't really understand the depthness of that, right? The sacrifices
Mhm.
that we have to make, or that is being made on their behalf, right? And I often tell people, I lost mine and struggled through mine, so you don't have to,
Yeah, yep,
right?
absolutely. Yep.
And
Yeah,
so there's a lot of give and take there, because one of the biggest challenges I get with people, they go, oh, you just want to capitalize on my grief. How? That's
yeah,
how. For what? I'm not charging you anything.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
The only thing I'm giving you is for free, so how am I capitalizing? But then I stopped doing that and I said, hold on. But isn't it the same thing that you do to me? Isn't it the same? Because you came to me,
yeah,
and you're exploiting me for my losses, but now you're mad because why?
yeah, it doesn't yes, it doesn't make sense. And yes, I just
I
go like, "Not your people," right?
You have to know your people. You have to know your tribe, and
Yeah,
things. And I realize grief is such a sensitive thing, right? And it's
Yeah,
okay. It's definitely okay, right? And I want nothing but for people to be able to heal
me,
during
yeah,
that times of deep emotional attachment, right? To the people and sometimes to things and things like that. It's a reflection of themselves. You're right, my brother. It really is. But you can't take it personal though. That's the beautiful part about it is that it's not personal. When you've been doing this for as long as I have or as long as Maria have, you realize that you cannot have any personal attachment to what people say or
no,
do. Right?
no,
We were there once upon a time too, right? So there's that
yeah,
great appreciation
absolutely,
and forgiveness that
exactly,
come along with that,
exactly.
right?
That's right.
Give us
Yeah.
give us some of your thoughts. Give us some of your thoughts on some of the experiences that you've had along your way.
Oh, well, like you, Tony, like I am just so deeply grateful for what's happened and that I chose to heal. And that's one thing that I teach the most is around, we have to make a choice, and you can make a choice whether to stay the same, or there's pain in staying the same and there's pain in growing and healing, right? And
Yeah,
so, I've been so committed to my path of healing because I just couldn't stay the same. And look,
right,
no one would blame me. No one would blame you either, Tony, if we were waiting for the bottle shop to open every morning, right?
right,
Like, if we were, like, just stayed in bed all day or whatever, like, but no, we both, and others, we chose to heal, and we chose to grow from our experiences, and I think that that's, um, that I love to inspire people, and my women, like, I really advocate for this process of, letting go. What are you ready to let go of, from the past,
right.
belief systems, and we take our lessons from nature and we watch, like, how, the rose lets go petal by petal. It doesn't force itself. You can't force yourself to let go on
Hmm.
a path of, recovering from grief or abuse or heartbreak or whatever it is. But then we get to choose, like, our new ways of being. How do I wanna show up in this world? Like, how do I wanna experience life? Like you said before, Tony, like, being the creator, knowing that we're creating our path. And, like, I took a massive, massive leap of faith when, when I ended the marriage. And then I took a massive leap of faith when I moved cities. So I moved, to Mackay in Queensland, which is about, um, say, like a 12-hour drive from where I used to live in Brisbane.
Hmm.
And so I didn't know anyone. And it was hard as well, but it was so good because there were no memories here. And now I live in, like, my own unit, like, just by the beach. And that's like a dream come true. So, like, I couldn't, if I went back and talked to my past self, she wouldn't believe me that I'm now, like, living my dream life close to the beach, you know, living my purpose of supporting women to heal and to grow, to, like, really, that bigger picture is to, weave that divine feminine thread, like, to help with the balance of the masculine and feminine, in the world and within ourselves. So it's like it's a privilege to do this work, and it's just with such depth of gratitude for my journey, and the journey is ongoing, right? Like, it's
Most definitely.
like, it doesn't, I will talk, I have to, I do my practices, I do my meditation every day. It takes effort to heal, but it's worth it.
It does, and it is. which now leads me to my next question. How do you get, because, I look at the world, right? In the last few years, there's been a role reversal where, in a lot of different cases, women have become more masculine. Women want to become alpha women, and they want to become independent. So, and we as men, we get told all the time that we're not needed, and things like that. And now we're at a place now to where, the question is being asked: where are the good men at? We're at home, right? Because, how do we help our help people move past that, or begin to understand the proper, I hate saying that, understand the roles of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and how together as a unit, what I'm saying, even in their hardest times, right? You know what I'm saying? And understanding that each role is a complement to the next.
Absolutely. And I think the first point is, Tony, that we have the feminine and masculine energies within each of us, right? And, my expression this lifetime is that I'm a woman and I am very much in my divine feminine power, but I wasn't. And so, and this is the patriarchy affects us all, like as you highlighted, women are being, murdered by partners at super high rates.
Yeah.
Men are, told to not cry, to shut down their emotions, and at big rates of suicide, right? So patriarchy impacts us all. And I watched Elizabeth Gilbert. I watched her on a YouTube speech recently, and so I'm going to refer to what I learned from her, and that is that we have the divine feminine and the divine masculine, right? That like sit together. And then we have the profane masculine and the profane feminine. And so for me, I was in my profane feminine, overgiving. I gave my whole self away, couldn't receive, and overgiving, always giving, and that perfectionist, so it's taking the divine feminine qualities of nurturing and compassion and empathy, and then taking them too far, right? Giving away everything. Whereas when we can, so as women, when we can start to recognize those qualities within ourselves, and it's conditioned, and it's within the collective energy, like of how women behave and act. And then that's when we can start to recognize and move back into our divine feminine. But what happens is, this is the world according to me, then women have gone, well, it's not fair that, like men are earning, there are more men named John as CEOs than women. And, like all of this stuff is that then they've gone to their profane masculine, so the control and the taking, but they're still giving everything away as well. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, right? And as a man, I had to really listen to what you were saying, because I didn't want to miss anything, right? And I will tell you, most of us out here, we all think the same way, and it's so crazy that it just goes over people's heads. It's overthought or it's underthought, right? But when asked that question, or put in those situations, it's all the same. We all saying the same thing. Like, hey, hold on. Like, is anyone else paying attention to what's going on?
Yeah, right? That's right. Yeah, and for men in their profane masculine, they're the one, like, control and barriers and not feeling. But when the divine masculine is actually taking some of the feminine qualities, I feel, embracing the compassion and the gentleness. And because the divine feminine at its core is like the qualities of, say, the ocean, that like that we're powerful and fierce and strong and gentle and soft and nurturing and empathetic, right? So if you like, those are the energies, like, you know, my goal is to be love, and my goal is to be like water, to have those, to embody those qualities, to really do my work in the world.
Yeah, I like that. As you was talking about that, this phrase started coming to my mind. It was like, because I believe that it should be that, and I just want to add a little bit to it. You know,
Yeah.
the words like golden milk kept coming to my mind. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a golden, silky milk that should, and it's something worth to be bathed in, right? You know what I'm saying? Because of the nurturing factors that come along with that energy, right? So, you know, I think when we understand the language, when we can understand how to speak into that love language,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because that's what it is. It's a love language in itself.
Yeah.
And when we can understand that, I think we can all just work together to get back to where it can be something beautiful. It could be something magical, that to help others understand this is what it took, right? You know what I'm saying? And this is what it should look like, right?
Mm.
Oh no, just my thoughts. You know,
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Tony. And the key is that we can only do the work on ourselves, right? We can only start to recognize our own energy and where we are at, and then, you know, make that choice to grow or not. But when we do, and when more and more of us do, when more and more of us like become conscious, then that's when the energy shifts in the world. But that's not our job. Our job is to work on ourselves, and like to, you know, like, that's what I always encourage all of my women to do, is that's all you can do, is do your own work, and then things start shifting in your life. You know, when you judge yourself less, then other people start judging you less, for example. Like, when you start being more compassionate and loving towards people, then you start to receive that back. So it's like a flow-on effect.
mhm. I love that. I definitely love that. Now, as we begin to wrap up this episode and everything, you know, I got two more questions for you. One, how can people find you, Maria?
Oh, well, they can find me on Facebook, and I'm assuming that you'll put the link in the show notes. So feel free to, like, message me, contact me. I'm also on Instagram, Maria Roney Healing, and I also have a goddess Isis. She's like an Egyptian goddess of fertility and magic and healing. And there is a channeled activation for abundance, healing, and happiness. And that is free if any of your listeners want to go on um, and download that. Absolutely, listen to it 5 minutes every day, and
Mhm.
and shift. So, and if anyone wants to just have a chat, like, I offer any of your listeners, Tony, if they want to have like complimentary 30-minute conversation anytime to see how I could be of service, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and that link is actually in the description as well. So I encourage people to go and check her out. And if you guys enjoy this conversation, do me a favor. If I'm worthy of it, just head on over to that YouTube channel. You guys see it scrolling across the bottom. Hit that subscribe button for me, and hit that bell notification so you don't have to miss another episode. All right. And also, my last question to you, Maria, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, oh, oh.
See, it sounds like you asked the question. See, I knew you did research on me. I'm like, I got it with this one.
Superpower. I mean, if I had a superpower, it would be to alight the hearts of every human on this planet with love.
I like that.
Mm.
I like that. That's good stuff right there. Oh man, that's good stuff. Um, wow. For everyone that's been tuning in today, thank you guys. We're going to wrap up this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. And of course, guys, go and check out Maria. Go follow her on her social medias. She did put a free gift in the description in there. So if you guys want to take advantage of that, please go in there and use that free gift. Tell her that that you saw on Tony's podcast, right? You guys already know. Talk with you. You guys already know that you're going to be in good hands. And again, I am Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast. And as always, thank you for allowing me to keep bringing these conversations of support and purpose with people that are out here doing some amazing things. And you guys already know we are on a mission to keep bringing daily episodes to you guys, right? You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to wait for another week or so, anything like that. I will be back tomorrow with some more people for you, right? You know what I'm saying? But most importantly, guys, if you haven't already, I'm gonna plug the book, Relentless. This is the first anthology that I did. Go check it out on Amazon. Relentless, what I'm saying? Empowering stories of overcoming adversity. Now, one of my favorite books, Men Grieve Too, right? You know what I'm saying? With 8 men out there, you guys see it up here. Go to lulu.com. You guys can get it off of there. Look under Tony Lynch. The book is over there. Do me a favor, just get yourself a copy, right? And we got some more things coming. Maria, how can you find your books as well? Are they on Amazon or anything like that?
If you just go to the Broken to Brilliant website, you'll be able to find the books there.
Awesome. Yeah, and I do have the link to that as well. So guys, please go and check those out. With that being said, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. We're going to see you guys tomorrow. And as always, if you have not already, do me a favor. Go and tell the people that you love them, because tomorrow's not guaranteed, nor is the next moment. So, make sure that you make it a point to let them know that they are loved, they are seen, and that they're cared for by you. With that being said, fellas, we're going to wrap up this episode. We're going to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great and awesome day. Peace. Thank you again, Maria.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony.